we like to bring you this broadcast to bring you part 2 on what if Deku had courage that carry dogs. Toon Force part 2. Have courage. In the middle of nowhere, Midoriya and Miro and Eustace Bag has gone to Japan and go to US. Be careful, you guys, because spooky stuff are coming to Japan, and it's up to Courage to save his new home. Eustace then says, "Stupid dog, you make me look bad," wearing a freaking scary ass mask, and Deku then screams, "Ah!" Deku was looking at the whole school and was amazed on how it looks, because it's his first time being there. And Deku then says, I know I'm not gonna like this. And Deku then goes in and does one very specific tutorial, because he already did the written exam online. So when he sits down, he was being cautious and worried about what he's gonna deal with, and then looks at the whole stadium and sees all the seatings and sees a glasses boy with blue hair intensively studying on the work. Then he sits with, on his side, a blonde-haired kid with an explosive attitude. And Deku then says, and raises a hand saying, "Nice to meet you." And then Bakugo says, What are you looking at me like I'm gonna kick your ass?" And Deku then retracts the shaking of the hand and says, And Bakugo says, "What? Do you have a problem with me?" And Deku says, And Bakugo gets really agitated, and Deku tries to de-situate the fire. But when all was going to be a problem, Ida then says, "You two, you're making too much racket. That's not how you should be studying." And Deku then says, "Oh, sorry." And Bakugo says, "Whatever." And then hearing out President Mike and explaining the rules. And Deku was on the bus and getting ready to, or Deku gets ready for the robots, by which I mean preparing, I mean scared shitless, by surrounding by a lot of people. This is gonna be no good. And when he was trying to figure out a way to how to survive, a girl that was hearing Zuku's panic with brown hair says, "Are you okay?" And Zuku then feels her touch on his shoulder, and sees the girl, and he feels a similar ease to Muriel. And Chaco says, "My name is Achako Oraka. What's your name?" And Suki then writes it down on his board and says, "Shuko Midoriya." And Achako says, "Suki, that's a nice name." And Suki then feel the effect of Achako's charm and then gets embarrassed on that. And Choco says, "Don't worry, you're gonna be okay, because heroes are gonna help." It goes too far. And Suki looks and sees the heroes and sighs. And then President Mike says, "Alright, you guys, it's time to go take down some villain. On your mark, get set, go!" And all the students run to take down the most villain. And while doing that, Suku didn't expect to be running, all of them running, then getting into a trampled by others besides Achako. And Suku then makes some sound. Ooh! Ow! Ooh! And while the trampoline was over, Suku looks like he was in worse for wear. And then he laughed. And Suku pops up, and then, ooh! Then President Mike said, "You with the pink hair and the long ears, you better get going before you get no points." And Suki says, "Rrr, rrr," and goes and tries to get points. But while he was trying to look for something, a 2-pointer looks at Suki. And Suki then says, and the 2-pointer attacks. And Suki screams, "Ah!" And then Aoyama saved Suki, but taking the point. And Aoyama says, "What an unexpected time. We'll meet again, monsieur," and blasting off. But Suki was confused on what he mean by that, and who was that guy? Or that sound. And Suki then tries to find a way to get points. Hama 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 hama. And Suki then was trying to look around and figuring out how to get points besides destroying a 0-pointer. A robot. Then he feels the ground shake, and Suki was wobbling around with his foot, and feels another shake, and plops down. Ooh! And then realizes and sees the 0-pointer, and Suki then says, "Oh!" Ah! And turning into shapes of scaredness, he was going to run, but then he hears a certain girl trapped on a cement pillar, and it was Ochako. And Suki then says, "What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?" And Ochako says, "Help!" Then Suki sees the 0-pointer going to stomp on Ochako, and Suki says, then flashes back to Muriel. "Oh, Suki, you have so much courage." And Suki says, "Right, courage." And then Suki has a 1-in-a-million idea, and then pushes himself into a cannon, and then lets it and fires. And screaming, "Ah!" and punching through the cement pillar with his helmet in his head, and feeling that, cracking it down. Then Chaka says, "Suki, you have courage." And Suki then says, "Chaco, I'll save you!" and grabs Ochako with his hands and runs as hell. And then the cement 0-pointer crushes down, and then Suki then runs as fast before he could even be squashed with Ochako. And Ochako says, "Thanks, Suki." And Suki then says, "Transform into a doctor and checks any injuries." What is it? And then Ochako says, "Oh, Suki, it's alright. I only sprained my leg a bit." And Suki says, "Whew." And looking at the 0-pointer, thinking of how to stop. And Ochako says, "Are you really going to?" And Suki says, "Yes," in written note, and trying to help others. And Suki then says, "Cover her ears." And Ochako cover her ears. And Suki screams out, "Ah!" with the most powerful of his life. The 0-pointer's metal cracks. The screws are loosening up, falling apart bit by bit, and collapsing on itself. And Suki then keeps on screaming, "Ah! Ah!" And when he then cracks all the window and other places. So cracks on the houses. And Sugu then takes a heavy breath and passes out. And Chaco says, Sugu! And Sugu says, moaning in his very, very tired state. And Sugu was in the nurse's office and said, huh? And nurse says, my, you really overdid it. I think that's the limit of your hurt, my boy. And Sugu was confused on what she was talking about. Then the nurse said, oh, right. You were in the nurse's office for a couple minutes, and you had a tired time using up your screen on that 0 pointer. And Suki then thinks about that. Oh, nodding to her. But that girl was very happy that you saved her. And Suki then remembers Chaco. And the nurse says, better get going. You want your family to be worried about you. And Suku, on remembering Muriel, yes, Eustace, you would rather not care. And Suku goes back and finds Muriel, and then he gets to the house. And the new one feels like farm that was the same day. And then Muriel opens the door and sees Suku. Suku! And Suku then in happiness hugs Muriel and says, Muriel! And in a happy good, and Muriel says, so, how did you do? And Suku says, in a meh situation, but unexpectedly curious as well. And Muriel says, well, we'll see on the how you did on the mail comes. And then Eustace opens the door and says, that stupid dog, I hope fails. Muriel says, Eustace! And when he says that, the mail drops and hits him on the head. Ow! What did I do? And then Muriel says, the package from UA. Let's open it. And Suku and Muriel open it and see All Might coming out of a hologram. And Eustace says, what's here? And All Might says, congratulations, young Midoriya. You have passed the entrance exam. You made about 90 points on saving others. And your passing grade is very great. I'm glad to have you. Class 1A, young Midoriya. And Suku says, in all happiness. And Muriel says, good job, Suku. And when Eustace hears that, stupid dog! When Eustace says that, hey, I got something for you. Suku says, oh, and all worried, and then Eustace pulls out the mask. Booga booga booga! Ah! Zuko put his heart out and bumping. And Eustace says, woo! Eustace gets hit in the head by Muriel. Ow! What did I do? And Muriel says, that's what you get for messing with courage. But also, did you made any friends, Zuki? And Zuki thinks and then remembers Achako and says, shaking his head. And Muriel says, that's good. And Eustace says, who'd be a friend with you, stupid dog? And Suki then goes to bed and gets ready for the next day. And that's where I'm ending this video. I hope you liked this video and hope you subscribe. See you next time. Plus Ultra.